Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you a story that starts like any ordinary day, but slowly turns into a moment that changes several lives forever. And as you listen, I want you to remember that some of the most powerful stories are not about shock alone, but about courage, truth, and what happens when someone finally chooses to protect the innocent at all costs. He wasn't supposed to be home that early. That was the one thing that made everything different. For years, his routine had been predictable, almost mechanical. He left before sunrise, worked long hours, and came home late, tired but grateful to see his family. That morning, however, a meeting was canceled at the last minute. His boss told him to take the day off, and for the first time in months, he decided to surprise his wife and daughter by coming home early. He even stopped by a small bakery on the way, thinking of the smile on his little girl's face when she saw her favorite treat. As he pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always, quiet, peaceful, no signs of trouble. He walked up to the door, keys in hand, already imagining his daughter running toward him, calling his name, but when he opened the door, something felt wrong immediately. The house was silent in a way that wasn't normal. Not the calm, comfortable silence of a happy home, but a tense, heavy quiet that made his chest tighten. He stepped inside and called out softly, not wanting to ruin the surprise. No answer. He took off his shoes and set the bakery bag on the table. As he moved further into the house, he heard a sound that stopped him cold. It was a muffled sob, a small, frightened sound that no parent should ever have to hear. His heart began to race as he followed the sound down the hallway toward his daughter's room. With every step, his mind tried to explain it away. Maybe she'd fallen, maybe she was upset over something small, maybe everything was fine. But deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. When he reached the door, it was slightly open. He pushed it gently and looked inside. What he saw in that moment shattered his world. His wife was standing over their little daughter, her voice sharp and cruel, her movements filled with anger instead of care. The child was curled up on the bed, crying quietly, trying to make herself small. There were no words that could fully describe what it felt like to see fear in his daughter's eyes, especially fear that came from someone who was supposed to protect her. Time seemed to slow down. His mind struggled to process the scene in front of him. This was the woman he trusted, the person he believed loved their child as much as he did. And yet, there she was, hurting the one person who depended on them both the most. He didn't shout at first. He didn't move. He just stood there, frozen, as the reality crashed over him like a wave. Then his wife noticed him. Her face changed instantly. The anger disappeared, replaced by shock, then panic. She stepped back from the bed, trying to speak, trying to explain, but the words came out tangled and desperate. "What is going on?" he asked, his voice low but shaking. She started talking quickly, saying the child was misbehaving, that she was just trying to discipline her, that he didn't understand how hard it was to be home all day. But he wasn't listening to the excuses. His eyes were locked on his daughter. She looked at him with tears streaming down her face, her small hands trembling as she reached out to him. That was all it took. He crossed the room in 2 steps and lifted his daughter into his arms. She wrapped herself around him, crying into his shoulder, holding on like she was afraid to let go. He held her tightly, whispering that she was safe, that he was there, that nothing like this would ever happen again. In that moment, something inside him changed forever. He turned to his wife, his voice calm but filled with a strength she had never heard before. He told her to leave the room. When she tried to argue, he repeated himself, louder this time. She hesitated, then walked out, slamming the door behind her. He sat on the bed with his daughter, rocking her gently, wiping away her tears. She didn't speak at first, and he didn't force her to. He just stayed there, letting her feel his presence, letting her know she wasn't alone. After a while, she whispered that she was scared when he wasn't home. She said she tried to be good, but sometimes it was never enough. Those words cut deeper than anything else ever could. He realized then that this hadn't been a single moment. This wasn't an isolated incident. This had been happening while he was away, while he believed his family was safe. Guilt washed over him, heavy and overwhelming. He blamed himself for not seeing the signs sooner, for not asking more questions, for trusting blindly. But guilt quickly turned into determination. He knew what he had to do. That day, he packed a small bag for his daughter and himself. He told his wife he was taking their child somewhere safe. She cried, she begged, she accused him of overreacting. She promised it would never happen again. But he had already made his decision. He wasn't going to gamble with his daughter's safety. Not ever. They went to his sister's house that night. His sister didn't ask many questions at first. She just opened the door, took one look at his daughter's red, swollen eyes, and hugged them both. Later, when he told her everything, she listened in silence, then told him he had done the right thing. For the first time since that morning, he felt a small sense of relief. The days that followed were some of the hardest of his life. He contacted a lawyer. He spoke to professionals who knew how to help children heal from trauma. He filed for custody, determined to protect his daughter no matter what it took. Every step felt heavy, but every time he looked at his little girl, he knew he was doing what had to be done. His daughter struggled at first. She had nightmares. She flinched at sudden noises. Sometimes she would cling to him, afraid he might leave again. He adjusted his entire life to be there for her. He changed his work schedule. He learned how to listen more, how to notice the small things, how to reassure her with actions as much as words. Slowly, very slowly, she began to change. Her laughter came back in pieces at first. A small smile here, a quiet giggle there. She started sleeping through the night again. She began to talk about school, about her drawings, about the things she loved. The fear in her eyes faded, replaced by trust. Trust in her father, and trust in the world around her. As for him, he carried the memory of that day with him always. It became a reminder of how important it is to stay aware, to ask questions, to never ignore a feeling that something might be wrong. He spoke openly with other parents, encouraging them to listen to their children, to believe them, to create homes where fear had no place. The legal process took time. There were difficult conversations, painful hearings, and moments when he felt exhausted beyond words. But in the end, the truth mattered. The court saw what he saw. His daughter's safety became the priority. He was granted full custody, and with that decision came a sense of closure he never thought he'd feel. Years later, when his daughter was older, she asked him why he came home early that day. He smiled softly and told her that sometimes life changes for the better because of the smallest, unexpected moments. He didn't go into details. He didn't need to. What mattered was that she was safe, loved, and free to grow without fear. She hugged him tightly and said, "I'm glad you came home early, Dad." That was the ending he never expected but was grateful for every single day. So if there's one thing this story teaches us, it's this. Never ignore your instincts. Never assume everything is fine just because it looks fine on the outside. And never underestimate the power of stepping in when someone needs you the most. Sometimes, coming home early doesn't just change your schedule. It changes a life. Thank you for listening, and if this story moved you in any way, remember to look out for the people who can't always speak for themselves. Until next time, stay kind, stay aware, and take care.